program is produced using the resources of Public Media Network in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Learn more at publicmedianet.org.
Welcome to Connecting Communities, a podcast about the environment where we live, work, and play. We talk with individuals from our community and the greater Kalamazoo area who have a positive impact. Today we're with Josh Keiser of the Asylum Lake Preservation Association. Hi, Josh.
Hi.
I'm your co-host, Patrick Hirschberger, with Dee Chauvin.
Hi.
So we're here today, Josh. I've got some storm clouds on the horizon. We want to talk to you about that.
Yes, certainly. And, in fall, it's been so dry. A little bit of storm clouds right now are a welcome thing.
True that.
But certainly when it comes to zoning around the Asylum Lake Preserve, the storm clouds are not such a welcome sight at this time of year. And certainly this is an ongoing storm that has just recently begun to reconfigure itself in sort of a new way. But certainly from the point of view of the Asylum Lake Preservation Association, or ALPA, we've been involved in protecting the Asylum Lake Preserve since 1991. And our main mission is to protect the integrity of the preserve. And we do that through engaging volunteers to come out to the preserve and get their hands dirty, working on improvement projects, and then also through a voting seat on the Asylum Lake Management and Policy Council, which is Western's management body for the preserve. So what's brought me here today is this issue on the southeast corner of Stadium and Drake, which is the northwest, adjacent to the northwest corner of the Asylum Lake Preserve. And I could jump right into it if that's...
Well, give us a little background.
Yeah.
Because this isn't the first time that I think people that live here are dealing with really a concern about what could be a pollution on a lot of levels, and a disturbance to the preserve. Can you tell us, kind of give us a little backstory?
Yeah. So this property in question, many people in our community in the last 8 years have come to know it as the car wash property. Others still know it as the former Vermeulen homestead. It's a 19-acre parcel that, as I mentioned, sits right at that southeast corner of Stadium and Drake. If you're driving on Stadium Drive, it's that big wooded area before you get up to Drake Road and toward the highway. And this 19-acre parcel is part of what was a former homestead. The owners of that homestead sold the parcel in 2017. It was sold essentially to the highest bidder, which was a company called DNS Stadium Drive, LLC. And this is the developer who develops the Drive and Shine car washes, which we've seen around town. And that's why folks have come to know it as, quote, the car wash property. I'll say the contentious car wash property. Now, what... This period of transition for the property has really ushered in a lot of contention. And as you mentioned, the main issue here is the potential for pollution to Asylum Lake and to Asylum Lake Preserve. And so just so we can kind of have a spatial reference, the southern border of this property, which shares the property line with Asylum Lake Preserve, is about 100 feet from the lake itself at its closest point, 100 to 250 feet from the lake.
It's nothing.
It's very close. It's very close. And on the western side, toward Drake Road, it's within less than 30 feet of the wetlands, which feed and protect Asylum Lake. And now... Asylum Lake is a groundwater fed water body. It's part of Portage Creek, so it's a source water for the Portage Creek watershed, and it flows downstream and contributes to Portage Creek, much like the lakes of El Sabo Preserve. And indeed, the Asylum Lake Preserve, which once was an asylum and has been owned by Western Michigan University since the 1970s, and has been actively considered a preserve since 2004 with the creation of the Policy and Management Council. And so one of the most important things that Asylum Lake Preserve does for our community is protects that water resource, which is Asylum Lake, and the waters that are connected to it downstream. And certainly Portage Creek flowing to the Kalamazoo River to Lake Michigan, all connected. And so when we when we think about this property and the contention around it, it comes down to a zoning issue. So when the current property owner bought the property in 2017, the parcel was zoned residential, as it remains zoned today. That zoning is a little bit of a remnant from the former property owner. However, it's also reflective of the adjacent properties, the Stadium Drive Apartments, which borders this property to the east, on the east side, and the Asylum Lake Preserve as well, which is also somewhat contentiously zoned residential. And that is a whole nother can of worms which we could open up. But to focus back on this property, on this corner property, which is 4301 Stadium Drive, formerly 3 parcels, now combined into one by the current landowner.
So they were successful in consolidating the parcels.
They did consolidate those parcels into a single parcel, which is the map that's seen today. But the zoning remains residential. And it includes a portion up by Stadium Drive, which is zoned for multi-family residential, and the rest is single-family residential. And the intention of the current landowner has been to develop a commercial center that would have included a car wash as seen in their original plan. Now, they brought forward this original plan to the community in 2019 or 2020 was when that first plan was actually brought forth after they purchased the property in 2017. It caused a lot of grief and dismay, especially with the nearby neighbors, to see the intensity of development that was originally planned for this property. And that really sparked what I would say a wonderful community upwelling to protest against what really was clearly an inappropriate land use for this environmentally sensitive property that was adjacent to Asylum Lake Preserve. And when we look at the property on the map, when we walk the preserve, it's pretty clear that the preserve and 4301, the property on the corner, are integrally linked through their ecology, their topography, their hydrology, so how the water flows from one to the other. And so the folks showed up from the community to the Planning Commission meetings during the original attempt at rezoning the property to CC, which is the heaviest district of commercial zoning available in the city of Kalamazoo. And the request was withdrawn at that time. And then in 2023, the city brought this issue back by including that property on their citywide rezoning map, their draft map for their citywide rezoning of commercial properties. And at that time, the city held some listening sessions where the community could come and hear what the purpose of the citywide rezoning was. And unfortunately for the city, the conversation was just absolutely dominated by this property. And because they had attempted to usher in, once again, the CC zoning, there were also some other contentious environmental issues that were brought forth at that time, including in that draft plan, they were removing the need for a special use permit for car washes. There was some what the public considered watering down of the Natural Features Protection Overlay. That's also known as the NFP, which has developed actually really in tandem with this issue, that development of the overlay for this parcel. And so all of that to say, yeah, we've really been rolling over this issue for a while now. And so what we're faced with currently is, again, an attempt by the representatives of the property owner for requesting a rezoning to CC district zoning. They have not requested a removal of the NFP overlay as they did in the past. So the NFP overlay still is applies to this property for the moment anyway. Again, now I want to be absolutely clear that ALPA's position has never been to vilify the property owner. We absolutely do not want to, make a bad name for anybody out there in Kalamazoo who's, trying to do business in Kalamazoo. What we really have always tried to focus on is the importance of this property for protecting the environment of Asylum Lake Preserve and its importance to the community as not only an environmentally protective property for the preserve, but as a natural area that we all who have enjoyed the preserve, who, the many thousands of people who enjoy the preserve each year have seen these trees on the property and have really seen them grow up in the last 10, 15 years while it has been what they call a vacant parcel. And there's other issues associated with that, but that's the kind of abridged timeline, even though it takes a while to really work through that. So what we're faced with now, again, is this request for rezoning to commercial.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And what is like the timeline? I think you guys are having, public comment, and it's kind of like in the mid-discussion stages. Like, what is this current stage of activity that ALPA is taking and that community members, just generally not associated with ALPA, who care about this and know about this, are taking? Absolutely.
And ALPA, as a volunteer organization, and we're all volunteers, it's great to see so many from the community who are interested in this, and obviously because the preserve is cherished by so many. We right now are really in the midst, I would say, of this request and the kind of snowball effect that it's had. So the request was actually made in August to the city, late August, and the community was not made aware of this request until about a month ago. Since that time, some of our local journalists were able to obtain actually the request from the city to bring forth some of those details.
Is that kind of like the primary way that folks find out about that? Or, I mean, because one thing that's standing out to me is like this vigilance that you have to have as this landowner. It comes back again and again. And so it's like if you take a rest from watching for a new request, you might miss it. Absolutely.
And that's that has been one of ALPA's, it has certainly been on our radar the whole time. And we've made a strong point of making sure that we are watching this and informing the public as things come up. And so just last Thursday, ALPA held an informational meeting for the community about what we know about the background of this issue, about the current request, and about what we can do as a community to once again stand up and make our voices heard that commercial zoning, especially this heaviest version of commercial zoning, is not an appropriate zone and would lead to inappropriate land uses that would harm the environment and harm the Asylum Lake Preserve. And so we held that public meeting that we hosted last week. Now, tomorrow, Thursday, October 30th, the landowners' representatives are holding an informational meeting as well. And now this is a standard part of rezoning requests with the city, that they are required to do this as part of their request. They'll be holding this meeting at Anna Witten Hall, which is the KVCC downtown campus, at 6 p.m. tomorrow. And according to the information that we've been given by the city, there will be some time allotted for questions and answers. We don't know how much time, but strongly encourage everyone, if you're interested in this, and if you're hearing this right now, maybe not.
We're hearing this right now. This is probably going to get released after early November. Yeah.
Okay, and that's fine. So the most important date is November 6th. Okay. And that November 6th is the Planning Commission meeting of the City of Kalamazoo, when this request will be brought forth to this the Planning Commission. This will be a meeting at City Hall at 7 p.m. on November 6th. It's a Thursday evening. And again, we just strongly encourage everyone, if you're interested in this issue, if you feel like strongly or even a little bit like, I don't think commercial zoning here on this corner, commercial development is good for Asylum Lake Preserve, definitely ask that you show up on that November 6th Planning Commission date and make your voice heard. Now, at these meetings, the public has each individual from the public has 3 minutes to make a statement. And what we're hoping is to bring a large turnout, because in 2020, when this very similar request occurred, it was that turnout at the Planning Commission meeting that really laid this issue to rest, at least temporarily. And so there are many kinds of potential ways that this could go after the Planning Commission meeting. What we're hoping for is that the Planning Commission will once again hear the voice of the people of Kalamazoo, that CC zoning, that commercial zoning is not appropriate for this parcel, and that they will deny the request for rezoning, and that we can open up some dialogue, not only with the current landowner, but with potential future prospective landowners. And this is where it gets a little tricky, is that what we understand right now, and more information will be coming out soon about this, but as we understand, the current request is related to a potential sale of this property from the current landowner to a different commercial real estate developer. Now, this sale would be contingent on the commercial zoning. And so because it's related to a sale, no site plan has been provided for this rezoning request. And so if you can imagine that, without any sort of site plan or any sort of information about what their plan to actually use that CC zoning for, it opens up the possibility, certainly, that car washes, gas stations, automobile services could be built or developed there in the future with special use permits from the city of Kalamazoo. And even without those special use permits, again, this heaviest type of commercial zoning could be ushered onto that land. And so my best example of what CC zoning looks like is just across from this property to the north on Stadium Drive. Those commercial centers are CC zoning. They include very large shopping malls, very large parking lots. They can include, like I said, automobile services with special use permits and this sort of thing. So, again, showing up at that November 6th Planning Commission meeting is the most important thing that we can do as a community right now to reiterate this message that commercial zoning is not appropriate for that property. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you, if development was done on a residential level, what are the concerns there? Like, is there? I mean, is from what I'm hearing and what tell me if I'm wrong here. Is this, the community, a large part of the community that is close by that space wants it to remain untouched? Is that the goal?
There are many different opinions about what should or could be, a future land use for this property. I'm going to say the highest and best land use for this property, which is what the sort of planning lingo is. The highest and best use for this property. So we have a diverse community. Everyone has different ideas about what would be appropriate here or what wouldn't. From the Asylum Lake Preservation Association's perspective, certainly if we could protect and restore this 19-acre parcel of land, link it into the trailways of not only the preserve but other regional trails that are going on. I'm thinking the Fruit Belt Rail to Trail project that's happening in Ashtamo, that this property was actually a historic part of that railroad. And so, thinking more about this as kind of a gateway to the city of Kalamazoo as you're coming into the city limits from west of Drake Road, is really bringing this forward and highlighting the environmental services and the value of the natural space. Now, that is a dream, certainly, and the biggest barrier to that dream and to many dreams is a simple dollar and cents amount. And now it's really tricky because this parcel is now locked into a commercial price point, if you will, where commercial real estate developers are seeing this and trading very large multi-million-dollar sums of money to say, we want so badly to put more commercial zoning here because of the success of the commercial zoning to the north. Now, from a common sense point of view, just because that commercial development has existed up there does not mean that it's appropriate to continue pushing toward Asylum Lake. And indeed, the science really shows, and I've been involved in water quality studies of the commercial impact on Asylum Lake, and it's extremely detrimental. And there's science going back to the 1970s that have showed how runoff, how chlorides from winter road salts have really damaged the lake. And there's a lot going on right now to try and remediate that from the preserve's point of view, but not so much from the commercial development point of view. They're just business as usual. And so, back to your question, which is, what are some potential land uses here that could be appropriate? Certainly, land uses that respect the integrity of the environment of the preserve and the linkages between this corner property and the lake and the preserve itself. Now, I believe, and based on conversations I've had with other people in our community, including conservationists as well as developers, that if this property were to be developed, I think that the community would only find a level of acceptance, whether that's residential or some sort of lighter commercial development, if certain safeguards are followed, if a plan is presented that the community can actually receive and give their input on. Now, residential development would certainly have an environmental impact. Anytime we're talking about bringing impervious surfaces into a natural area, we're creating stormwater runoff. Anytime we're talking about bringing pavement into a natural area, we're creating that urban heat and reducing the sequestration of trees, for example, of our trees, for example. And then there are other issues like noise pollution, light pollution. There are certainly community concerns about traffic happening at this corner. It's the 7th most dangerous intersection in Kalamazoo, according to the city in 2023 data. And so there are all these other kind of variables that we need to be thinking about. And so certainly right now it's zoned residential. If it were owned by a residential developer, it could be developed as residences right now. And so we need to accept that as a community and work with that understanding.
For those people that don't know, what does the natural features overlay do to protect the space?
Absolutely. So the natural features overlay is intended to be a guide for those who are trying to develop properties that contain natural features as identified by the city. And so these are natural features like waterways, adjacent to waterways, trees or wooded lots, trees of a certain size or maturity, or wooded lots, which are areas that are covered by a certain amount of trees. Slopes, so the grade of slopes where we have these heavy, high slopes. So the way that the NFP helps to protect those things from inappropriate development is by putting out forth setbacks, for example. So setbacks from 10 feet from the toe or top of certain types of slopes. Setbacks 25 feet from the edge of water or wetlands. On this particular property, we can see it's a very sloping property that leads toward Asylum Lake, but is also of varying topography, rising up from the lake, back down toward the middle of the property, and then back up towards Stadium Drive. And so we do believe that the NFP could have a protective value, especially on the slope closest to the lake, and ensure that development wouldn't necessarily be able to change or harm the slope that leads to the lake. Okay, so that's a great win. And again, the NFP was developed in the last 8 years as in response to this particular the sensitivity of this parcel, and so we're grateful for that. For example, for woodlots, a certain percentage of a woodlot would need to be left protected. The trouble with the NFP is that it's not a distinct district of zoning. It's an overlay.
Yeah.
And it's really used as a guideline for developers. So it's not going to prevent development. And there are these little loopholes. And I don't want to give anything away to anyone who's trying to get loopholes out there. But the things like there's some verbiage in there regarding how developers can kind of get around some of these things, including replacing trees that are removed by planting new trees off-site in the city, so not even on the same property. Okay, there are things like that apply unless a certain type of zoning it interferes with land uses which are it's this whole idea of economic development rights of certain land use, certain zoned land uses. So if you have a property that's zoned commercial, for example, the city can't, if it was zoned commercial, the city can't force a zoning district that wouldn't allow you to gain that commercial development economic. And so there's this kind of legalese. And again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not in this world. I'm just another community member trying to understand these things. And so we're grateful for the NFP and for all the work that community members have put in toward developing it. It definitely is a good thing for our city, but it's not perfect. And even with the NFP in place on this property, there are certainly still a lot of environmental concerns. Yeah, and some of those, some of the biggest environmental concerns here have to do with topography. In order to create a commercial development at grade with Stadium Drive, there would have to be a huge amount of backfill and grading. The land would be stripped of the existing trees and plants. Fill dirt would be brought in. These large piles of dirt are prone to erosion. Folks who have been around since 2019 remember when the Business Technology Research Park on Drake Road was being developed in 2019. There was a 6-inch rainstorm in June of that year, and a huge amount of sediment flowed past that, and their erosion barriers were in place. The construction crew, had followed their erosion guidelines, but it didn't matter. Because these, what I call the new normal of extreme summer storms, especially, but extreme storms in our region, it just took all of that exposed sediment from the removal of the vegetation and washed it right into the lake. Now that was buffered by the headwater pond that's on the west side of Drake Road. Even so, video footage from drones, you could see that sediment tumbling into the lake. And that is extremely degradatory to aquatic ecosystems, to the plants and animals that depend on Asylum Lake and its wetlands. And so when we're talking about a property that's now adjacent to Asylum Lake, not only linked through water pathways, but also just physically right next to the preserve on this hillside, it's hard to imagine a scenario where something like this is just, it's not possible that it could harm the lake. Absolutely, it's possible that any sort of development here could lead to an injurious situation. So these are the things that we're just, we're trying to bring this awareness to folks about, what, and to start this conversation with the city particularly. Because again, the city has been part and parcel in trying to usher in this community commercial CC zoning. And again, part of that is the tax base that commercial development brings to the city. So
is there a way to protect the property just besides, is there any kind of zoning that exists that would make it so that this is not on the table anymore?
Right.
I know you mentioned it involves buying the property.
Yeah, and so there's two things that you just mentioned there, and they're very important points. One is the buying the property. So really, if the community wants to save this property, it's about buying it, giving it to a entity which is willing to do the long-term work of restoring the property and linking it as an environmental space and allowing that long-term upkeep of the property as an environmental space. I was involved with a group in 2023 following when the city removed this property from their zoning request. Again, the people showed up, the zoning change was removed by the city. And following that, I was part of a group of a large number of organizations from Kalamazoo that are involved in environmental conservation, that included the folks from the city of Kalamazoo. And this was actually spurred on by a conversation that I had with a friend that I met at a community event, and I was talking about this piece of land. He said, you know what, I actually, he had mentioned that he worked for an architectural firm, which is actually a part of the Potawatomi Nation, and that his a few folks from his architectural firm in 2020 had actually come up with an alternative design for this property, which was really cool, and we were really trying to coalesce around it. It was about basically an environmental library where it would, it'd be a natural space, but it would incorporate sort of an outdoor learning, opportunities. It would link in indigenous history and bring forward, those histories, but also the enduring presence of indigenous people in our community. And it was really a cool idea. And so we brought this forward to many different people. We really gathered some excitement around it. And then that led to a meeting with the landowner, which that commercial sale price that they were expressing they desired for this property was brought forward. And that at that point they said $10 million. The property was bought for $2.5 million in 2017. So that gives us an idea of what, that number. And so from our point of view, we had talked to people who are familiar with fundraising. We had talked, we brought in one of the main players here had been involved in the Stewards of Kleinstuck's purchase of the Little Sister property adjacent to Kleinstuck. And we're all so grateful for the community's fundraising efforts that brought forward the protection of that property. But when we're talking about, $10 million, that kind of shut our conversation down, honestly. And so I would love to bring this conversation back up. I would love to put it out there that if there are people who want to take the lead on this, ALPA is right there with you. ALPA certainly was involved in all of those conversations. And we want to continue to push this idea forward that there is a higher and better use for this that could protect the environment and be a part of, or at least akin to, the Asylum Lake Preserve. Now, the other aspect of that, which you mentioned, is the zoning. Is there some zoning change that could happen that could protect this parcel? And the answer is right now, with the current land ownership and the prospective land ownership being interested in commercial development, no. Their attempt to change the zoning to a heavy commercial zoning is that's their intention, and keeping it in residential zoning right now is the best thing, the most environmentally protective option for us right now, because a green zoning district or environmental protection zoning district does not exist in Kalamazoo. And now this is something that's also been brought up by ALPA to the city. We've had meetings, and we've brought in other community organizations to try to press for the creation of a green zoning district for Kalamazoo. And going back to something I said earlier, which is that Asylum Lake Preserve, as well as Kleinstuck Preserve, as well as city parks, none of these have a distinct zoning district. Even if they have the NFP overlay, which many of them do, they don't have a distinct zoning district. Asylum Lake Preserve is zoned residential, okay? And you can think about, wrap your head around what, the possible, I don't even want to go there, and so we're pushing, and it's not totally unheard of. For example, Dane County in Wisconsin is one of the more prominent examples of a county that has enacted specific zoning districts for environmental protection. And they have a couple different categories that would apply to different types of environmentally protected lands. And so what we are pushing for the city to do is to create this green district that a landowner could voluntarily apply to their preserved land or to their park land or to their natural area on their property. And again, zoning, there's this issue where the city couldn't force a green zoning district on a landowner, for example, because that would take away their right to develop. But a landowner could voluntarily opt into a green zoning district. They could request to have the preserve, for example, zoned into an environmental protection zoning district. And then that would add an additional layer of protection, because then if that property were ever to, if someone wanted to develop that property, they would have to bring that to the city and go through the public channels, so that the public would have to be able to show up at the planning commission and say, this is how we feel about this. And so that is a kind of a sort of side project that ALPA has been working on promoting, and I gotta say, it's popular as far as what people want.
Farmers are doing this, right? Throughout Michigan, farmers are dedicating family-owned land to natural spaces. So I mean, these things are already happening in our state in different places that obviously not necessarily a city, but I mean the same kind of I think that the same thoughts apply behind it, right? Like you want, once these spaces are gone, they're not easily brought back.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And especially from the most intensive forms of development. Yeah.
Regarding your network of supporters and, kind of how you engage with them, there's lots of questions I have, all, again, going back to this idea that's just struck me about how vigilant you all have to be, but also like deciphering the language of the proposals and getting kind of that legalese out of the way. How understandable are these proposals for the average neighbor who sees them?
That's a great question. It's taken a lot for someone who has no background in zoning. It has taken a lot of effort for me, speaking from personal experience, to kind of really decipher what these kind of fine points of zoning and what they mean for potential land uses. Luckily, there are many people in our community who have a lot of this knowledge, who have voluntarily brought it forward to others in the community and to organizations like ALPA to help us and to understand that and to help us make sense of it. And so one of the things that ALPA tries to do is distill some of these more difficult technical things into something that's understandable for the community. And we've had a lot of help to do that. Now, I will say that the request for rezoning is actually pretty straightforward. And if you look at that article published by WMUK that has or if you looked at request from the city for the rezoning request, it's pretty straightforward. It's the information about the landowner, it's the information about the applicant, and it's the information about what zoning district they're requesting. And in order to support their request, they're required to answer 5 questions. Now, these are what we consider the 5 conditions for rezoning a property that the planning commissioners are required to consider during any request for rezoning. And I have them here. They are really fairly straightforward. One, is the request consistent with the city's ongoing 2025 or 2035 master plan and strategic vision? Number two, are there conditions that have changed that support the zoning change? Number three, do the changes address a community need? 4, are the proposed changes compatible with the surrounding properties? And number 5, will the changes result in logical and orderly development patterns? And again, these are the questions that the Planning Commission is required to consider when a request for rezoning is brought forward. And so when we think about these questions, from the point of view of the Asylum Lake Preserve Association and from other community associations, it's pretty obvious to us that there are not conditions that have changed. In fact, conditions have emerged that would suggest this is an inappropriate development, particularly environmental conditions affecting Asylum Lake. Do the changes address a community need? There are more than 70, according to some research of a colleague, more than 70 available commercial lots in the city of Kalamazoo right now. So no, we don't believe that there is a need for more commercial development, especially one that potentially injurious to Asylum Lake and the preserve. Are these changes compatible with the surrounding properties? Again, I've gone over this. It's directly adjacent to the preserve. It's right next to the lake. It's right next to the Stadium Drive apartments. Okay. And should we think about what a large commercial development would do, not only to the standard of living for those people living next door, but for the whole community that depends on Asylum Lake, of people, of animals, of plants, of all of us that depend on water quality. We drink groundwater in this city, and this is a groundwater-fed lake, and so it is not compatible with the surrounding properties, which is the preserve. And we would say that it would not result in a logical or orderly development pattern, especially for environmentally sensitive parcels in the city, which should be developed or protected in a way that is, again, common sense protection of our natural resources. And then the first question, which is, if you read the request for rezoning from the applicant, really the one that they depend on the most, which is, does it fit into the master plan? Now, in 2017, the city of Kalamazoo was undertaking Imagine Kalamazoo 2025, where they were creating a future land use map among updates to the master plan for the whole city. In October 2017, 4301 Stadium Drive, what we now know, formerly 3 parcels, now 1, changed hand to the current landowner, a commercial developer. Also in October 2017, at the same time, the city published their future land use map, which is a guideline. Okay, it's not a mandate. It's absolutely a guideline. And there are other examples of properties that have not, that haven't met that. Now it is 2025, so they were planning for 2025. When you read the request for rezoning from the applicant, they just harp on that. Well, the future land use plan 2025 says CC zoning for this parcel. Well, let's think back to how that happened. And we have the receipts that show some of the communications that were happening at that time between the landowner and the city. Again, the city has been trying to usher in this commercial zoning. But if we take a step back in time and look at the 2010 master plan future land use map, we actually see it looks a little bit different. The 2010 future land use map suggests only the northeast corner of this parcel or of this property is suitable for commercial development, and that the entire rest of the property, the majority of the property, is to be protected. Environmentally sensitive, it should be protected. And so what changed since then? The only change that really, brought forward this CC zoning and that future land use map was that the property changed hands to a commercial developer. And so we are now, the city is now undertaking Imagine Kalamazoo 2035. So one of the things I want to emphasize right now is public participation in Imagine Kalamazoo 2035 to bring forward these environmental concerns. And indeed, if we look at the updates from that, the number 4, the feedback from the community shows the number 4 concern from the community, the number 4 desire from the community is environmental protection, including protection of existing green spaces and of natural resources. And so, again, we want to move forward in a way that just promotes the possibility that there is a better future land use for this property, and it's one that respects its environmental importance. It respects its proximity to its adjacent neighbors, and it reflects what the community has been really demanding in the last 7 years for this property to be protected and not developed in a way that is currently being proposed.
Awesome. Yeah, the future is always something you can change no
Right.
matter how many vision boards or plans that you create. But I appreciate we're running out of time here, so I just wanted to give an opportunity for any last thoughts. But and I wanted to say that I appreciate all of the things that you've said here and all of your arguments. I think that it will be a really exciting meeting next week to go to. I think everybody should go and get a seat for the live, get a seat, be there and hear other folks who are as excited, passionate, and informed as you are defending this land, and power to the people.
Power to the people. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely. And I couldn't have said it better myself. And absolutely. November 6th, Planning Commission meeting. Let's show up in force and let's respectfully bring our argument using the language of the Planning Commission, using those 5 conditions for rezoning. Those are posted on the Asylum Lake Preservation Association website. That's Asylum Lake Preservation Association.org. What we have done is we've posted our public presentation from last week on the website so that folks can not only understand the background, but also the environmental concerns, as well as how to develop your own personal argument against inappropriate zoning for this corner. So let's show up in force and let's, again, power to the people. Let's just keep making our community voice heard to protect this place of power. And it really is a place of power that's brought us all together to say there's something better in the future for all of us. Let's keep working at it together. We're not going to give up on it. Another way to get involved is a simple way is to sign a petition. This is an ongoing petition that has now more than 14,000 signatories. It's on change.org. And if you go to change.org and you type in Asylum Lake, it's the first one that's there. It's called Deny Rezoning for the parcel adjacent to Asylum Lake Preserve. A great way, again, if you can't come to the zoning meeting, to just add your count to the support. So.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming today. We
Thank
appreciate
you all. Yeah,
Thank you
so
Josh.
much.
Yeah.